Thank you very much. It's a pleasure to be here. Let's meet the candidates who are here joining us tonight and have them stand and one at a time. Some of you I know and some of you I don't know. First of all, Amy Nemboski. Mr. Moe, you've already met. Bob Lupo, Pete Mulcahy, and in the next race it's Cheryl Frasca, Phil Isley, and Tim Steele. The third race we have is Andy Clary and Dick Traney, and Paul Honeman is running unopposed. We're going to start with, the questions are going to go from race to race to race. I mean, all of you get to answer the questions, but we'll alternate as we go down by race. I'm a little bit overwhelmed to be a moderator in a setting like this. I am used to a television studio or a newspaper office, and I was reminded that once upon a time I was a moderator on public broadcasting. I had two candidates who were arguing over the Pebble Mine, but it devolved into a debate over the age of the universe. And finally they asked me to settle the question. They said, "Mr. Terry, how old is the universe?" I said, "I have no idea, I'm just a moderator." So we're going to go on for the next half hour. We'll take questions from the AFACT membership, and then each candidate will have 1 minute to respond. Then we will have audience questions as well. So let's have our first AFACT question.
We just invite those AFACT members who have questions from their congregations to please come forward to the mic at the podium, please. Would you also identify what congregation you're representing this evening?
My name is Carol Libby, and I'm from St. Mary's congregation. It's nice to be here. For many seniors, connection to a faith community provides access to a broad array of support systems. For seniors, Anchorage currently does not provide transportation on weekends, nor is this service available for rides at any time to a faith community. As the provider of Anchorage, how can the municipality meet these needs? How will you address these needs as an assembly member?
Okay, we'll start with Amy Nemboski, and every candidate will have 1 minute to respond. All right, so let's start with Mr. Moe. He wasn't there a minute ago, but now I
Well, thank you for your question. I've been involved in public transit issues for several years now. I'm currently staff at Alaska Center for the Environment, where we actively advocated for the last 2 transit bonds that passed. I participated in a few meetings at PCAB, the Public Transit Advisory Board. So public transit is a big priority for me, and I know that we've seen public transit decrease over the years, even though our population is increasing and the need is increasing. So public transit would definitely be one of my top priorities in terms of access, especially the seniors on the weekends, getting around, shopping, visiting friends and family. And I just don't think we should move backwards as a city and cut budgets for public transit, but we should grow the ways people move around the city, especially to and from businesses, getting to and from schools, to and from their jobs. I think it helps the community to have a strong public transit system, including Anchorage.
Thank you, and we should acknowledge the presence of our timekeeper, and next time she won't be so gentle, struck by a bolt of lightning. Amy Nemboski.
Thank you for the question. I can't see right now. Sorry. Well, I think public transportation is important. Being from Shuyakigo River, the one thing that we see is our transportation infrastructure is very lacking. We only have a couple of buses that run a couple times a day, and it's very important that people are able to get to and from work. And I think that public transportation is a key part of that. One of the issues that we're dealing with out in Chiquiaque River that I think is very important, we have no taxi cabs either. So our seniors are really at a disadvantage. If you can't get a cab and there's no bus that runs, how are they supposed to get back and forth? So I look at public transportation as a key part of infrastructure, and I think especially for seniors, you know, the role of us as a community really should be to take care of the sick and the elderly. We have to support those that have spent years and years supporting us. And I think that's important. So public transportation, especially when it comes to the senior center and the Chiquiaque River community, we definitely need to make improvements there.
Bob Lupo.
Well, I'm 72 years old, so I guess I classify as a senior citizen. And I'm a very driven individual, but not very driven. I lived in the River for 29 years. Hopefully I won't be blind, but I think there's some improvements we've made. There's a lot of improvement. The bus schedule has been reduced considerably, as you pointed out. I'd like to see smaller buses with a more frequent schedule, and I'd like to see taxi cabs come to the River. We've had big discussions about that, so they are available. And I'd like to see, instead of having a discount for senior citizens, I'd like the municipality to make senior citizen rides free. Just give you a card with your ID on it and be able to drive wherever you want.
People pay.
Mr. Mulcahy, if you would hold that microphone closer, that will help. Thank you, sir.
And being on probably helps too. So as you know, the seat that we're running for is the one that Debbie Ozier has occupied for the last 9 years. And about 6 to 9 months ago, Debbie really started tackling this transportation issue out there in Chiquiaque River, because as Amy pointed out, we really don't have any. And she started some committees to start analyzing that problem. And I've been working with Debbie on that a little bit to be able to take over when she terms out and I step into that seat, hopefully. We had a similar issue on Fort Ridge, and we had to cancel the people over because it was too difficult with the security and the transportation. I had to come up with the commander at Fort Richardson, and we weren't able to use military transportation because it only handles the soldiers, not the families. So I went to when I took over as the director of the Armed Services YMCA, I was able to solve the on-base transportation problem through donor-supported transportation. We looked at creative solutions and were able to solve them.
Now let's turn to the next seat. And that, first of all, we'll hear from Cheryl Fresta.
Thank you. My commitment to you will be to work with the stakeholders involved in order to come up with some solutions. Because my concern is that at the federal level, it's likely we can't expect more federal dollars given their critical situation. But my commitment is that, for example, when the mayor introduced his bond bills this month or so ago, there was a standalone public transit bond. My concern was that if it was standalone, it would fail because this community hasn't necessarily been supportive of public transportation. So upon my motion, we combined it in with the area-wide bond, which is where we have our fire trucks, emergency medical services, those kinds of things, because that always passes. So it gives a leg up to the public transit bond. So I'm supportive. I'm willing to work on solutions with the stakeholders in order to address the concern, because I do believe folks do need to have the opportunities in our community for their quality of life.
Now we'll hear from Mr. Isley, who's running for the same seat as Cheryl.
I think the biggest problem with transportation is just we don't have a road grid in Anchorage to support an efficient bus line. So the first thing that we probably need to do is establish a decent road grid so that you can have good bus lines. The second thing we could do is go to smaller bus sizes, because a lot of the buses, they're large and they go almost empty in a lot of different places. So we need to tailor the size of bus to the usage. And the third thing is I don't think it should matter whether you're faith-based or not. Everybody all the seniors should have the same opportunity to use assets that are available for the seniors.
Tim Steele.
Thank you for the question. I've often thought that our public transportation was ineffective and did not do what it needed to do. Certainly we had that same problem with the schools in terms of getting kids around. Our alternative programs are not open to everyone because the parents have to transport. So if they aren't able to transport the kids really can't compete effectively to get into the alternative programs. We need a better system. I agree with a number of things. I have to commend Cheryl for her move to the tactic, if you will, to include transportation in the other bond. And I do believe we also need to finish our crosstown road upgrades so that we do have a route system of some sort that buses can effectively run. So there's a lot of things to do.
Now we'll hear from Andy Clary, the big train there.
Well, thank you. Let me just stand up. My name is Andy Clary, running for Midtown seat. And first of all, I want to thank all of you for putting this event on. I know an event like this does not come off easy. It takes effort and time. I want to thank each and every person that was a part of that. Now, public transportation. It is a key function of city government. And there are individuals, I have a couple of friends in town that depend on the bus to get to work. And it's interesting, one just recently moved to town from out of state, and he's legally blind, cannot drive, depends on the bus service to get everywhere. And he, in particular, is one who's had experience in other locales like Washington, D.C. and Chicago. And I was very pleasantly surprised to hear from him how well he praises our bus system. Compared to these other locales, he's telling me that it is a good service and it's doing a good job. At the same time, there are changes, there are things that can always be done better. And I'll be here as your Silverman to listen to those changes.
Thanks, I appreciate it. My name is Dick Trey. I'm running for re-election assembly from this area. You know, public transportation is an interesting term. Word sometimes gives us trials that we need to overcome. In January of this year, I got an attack of gout, which I never had before. And the question was, how do I get from point A to point B when I can't even get my shoes on? Let alone getting on the state transportation bus. I'm lucky because I have 8 kids. And all 8 of them said, well, take me wherever you want to go. I wish Anchorage worked better. If I could have gotten out to Anchorage, I could definitely not get people to work. So the kids came to the house, carried me out, took me to the doctor, took me everywhere I wanted to go. Not everybody has 8 kids. But we need a transportation system that if you need to get around town, you can do that. I mean, this year, that's the reason we put money into the transportation system, because the mayor wanted to raise the fees by $1 a ride. And we took some surplus cash and took it down to no increase in bus fares. And that helps a lot of people that are dependent on the buses to get around.
Paul, 1 minute running on the poll.
Paul with East Anchorage, and I'm running for re-election. And after my first term on the assembly, I learned much. And one of the places I first started working in the municipality was a peak mover. One of our failings, if you will, in Anchorage is we're not in business for rapid transit nor for mass transit. We have a transit system that needs a more collaborative effort with taxi cabs, with shuttles. We could do, like Phil described, with grids and feed cabs. And when I lived as I guess dependent on the Air Force Base, they did have a contractor or a NAF that ran a shuttle bus back and forth on both sides of the base. I use that regularly. So public transportation is something, if you go to any major city, that works well if it's funded publicly and adequately, and it's not either here. We're one of only 2 states in the nation that has no state funding for public transit in our city, and that's not good.
Okay, we'll have a second question from an AFACT member. Please come to the podium. And Cheryl Frasca will go first in this round.
My name is Donna Graham. I'm part of the local organizing ministry at Central Lutheran.
And I'm Kate Gajewski from St. Anthony's Parish.
Since 2006, we've had a three-cornered stool that's working very well with Central Lutheran Church, Campfire, and our municipality providing West Fairview children after-school care. Central provides the facility, Campfire provides the programming, and the municipality grants the funding. It's wonderful. When, in August of 2011, the municipality imposed fee for use of city facilities, effectively pushing Campfire out of the West Fairview Recreation Center, those Fairview children east of Campbell and Ingram Streets were also bused to Central Lutheran. It was kind of a last-minute fix, and it did work for a full school year. Those children are now accommodated back at Fairview Elementary's Campfire program. The Fairview neighborhood has many low-income families. They cannot afford fee-based after-school care in spite of 1, 2, and sometimes 3 jobs. They desperately need the free Campfire program our partnerships have made possible and accessible. Yet, every year during municipal budget process, funding for this program is placed in jeopardy.
St. Anthony sits in a low-income neighborhood that has historically never had safe and productive children's programs during the 3 months of summer. St. Anthony's worked with Parks and Rec and housed the program for 2 years. Parks and Recreation eliminated that program in 2011. St. Anthony now operates a free lunch program during the summer, but does not have the resources or staff to provide a recreation program. If you are elected, what will you do on behalf of children who need affordable, accessible, summer and after-school care? Thank you.
I'm sure I'm the first to answer. It is a challenge, and we do have, yes, it is a challenge given that the city's resources are finite in terms of its dollars. So it comes down to a matter of prioritization. And there's no question that ensuring that children are safe and well fed is a community priority. So my approach, if elected, would be to bring together the stakeholders, again, the parents, the providers, and the other representatives that deliver services, and come up with, if we can, some efficiencies by which the services can continue. It could be some consolidations, some other ways to deliver the service, but there's no question that the service is needed. The question is how, and that's what I would be committing to try and work through.
Phil Isley.
I guess I'd have to say that I'm not real comfortable with this because you have a low-income community and you're asking everybody to support the children. And when I go to the community councils, I see where now for all year round, we're providing, the city basically is providing 3 meals a day for basically all the children. At least that's the word that I get. And we provide parks and playgrounds and speed bumps, and we're providing all kinds of things. And you say, well, we need to do this for the low income. And I don't really think that's the city's job. Choices were made to get that. If I were elected, I would recommend that fraternal organizations work with the churches to find resolutions for those, because I believe the challenge lies in the community and not in the government. If you look for the government to do everything, it's a losing situation.
Jim Steele.
Thank you for the question. The government is we the people, and I believe that it is our responsibility not only to help the children, but help those people who are down and out, whether it's a temporary situation or whether it's more than just a temporary situation. And I would place elders in that same category. Our funding is not finite. Our funding is what will we support, and there are many sources in this state. It could be state monies, it could be federal monies, it could be local monies, but we have an obligation, I believe, to support those in the community that need that.
Yeah, this is what I'd like to say.
is that we don't always need to look for a government solution. There are private entities, and my hat's off to these ladies who are working already, and with these 3 different organizations working together, coming together as a community to provide this service for these children. When it comes to the MOA support, as Cheryl had said earlier, every year we go through a system of prioritization, and the funds that are available, I would like to, if elected, be part of the solution in making more wise budgetary decisions, responsible decisions that put Anchorage on a long-term sustainable track so that we can start to build back some of the stuff that has been taken away over the last 4 years.
Dick Trainee.
I love Fairview. In fact, my wife is a teacher there at Fairview Elementary for I think 7 years. I know the area. Sandy knows the area. I know the problems that are down there. But you know, the problem is we have money in this town. According to my budget analyst, we have a surplus of $34 million. It's not a matter of we don't have money. It's a matter of where it's being spent at. And this current administration has been playing foolish and fancy-free with the dollars. We now have a budget analyst for this somewhere that can tell us exactly how much money we've got. So last time I asked our fiscal officer for the city, what's our budget? How much money do we have? She says we don't worry about that until the next quarter vision. And then we can tell you how much is there. There's actually more money there than we're being told is there. So we'll deal with that issue when we get to it. It's our responsibility to take care of every member of our town. No matter what they need, we need to reach out and help them. Especially the parents that are working 3 jobs and have kids. If you don't help them, their children are lost.
Well, I'll continue. I think the question is, what will I do? I'll continue doing what I have been doing, which is supporting and listening to the community. And the majority of the people are willing to spend their tax dollars on making sure that we have a good and safe community. And that includes part of the safety is after school when there are empty buildings sitting there, and it's a matter of charging rent. It's already being paid for out of our tax dollars. It doesn't make sense to me. I don't think it makes sense to you either. Mr. Training's right about the budget surpluses. We have a law in this town on our charter. It's really wonderful. I wish we had it at every level of government. Our budgets have to balance, so we don't have a budget crisis. No matter what you may have heard, our budget's balanced, and we've had surpluses, which is good. But with that, we can use some of those funds to leverage. I really like the term that was used, partnerships, and I'd like to continue. The municipality should be a strong partner in the partnerships to make sure we have a safe community.
Nick Moe on the other end.
I just want to repeat my name again. My name is Nick Moe. I'm a write-in candidate for West Anchorage, Assembly CD. I just want to first thank Donna for your question. My family has a long history at Central Lutheran, you know, this topic is very important to me. I think there is no better investment that our city can make than in the future of the city and state. You know, we need to give our young people the tools they need to succeed, and at the same time support the working families in Anchorage who might not have the luxury of being able to pick their child up after school every day. So I think we need to. There's no better thing that we can invest in than in increasing those opportunities. I just want to mention school meals very quick. I know you guys mentioned that. There's 68,000 Alaskans who are food insecure, and most of those are children, meaning they don't know where their next meal might come from. Schools have a great opportunity to increase access to affordable, to nutritious foods that help increase that opportunity as well.
Amy Dumbos.
Thank you. Well, I do think that there's a finite amount of money that this government has because you can't tax people 100%. With that said, I sit on the Parks and Board of Supervisors in Shediac, and what we often are asking our youth in our community, what can we do? What can we do to help give you things to do after school, recreation? So we have a lot of programs that I've been involved with that I've supported. But fundamentally, when it comes to after school and before school programs, we strengthen, not just create, but we need to strengthen the community relationships that we have with the different stakeholders. So I don't think the answer is a government solution necessarily, but I think we need to reach out to the churches, we need to reach out to the Lions Clubs, we need to reach out to the VFW. We need to expand those relationships and foster them, because quite frankly, I don't think the government is the solution to every single problem that comes before us.
Bob Lupo.
Well, I don't get it. Amy Jordan, the government should not be responsible for anything except the security of its citizens. We need to make sure that each individual is safe, and that if you want comfort and convenience, well, you should get out there and get it. Get it on your own without relying on somebody else to pay for it. Now, I'm saying that I grew up in New York City. When you look in the dictionary and the force, you have my picture in it. We had no hot water, no heat, no food. We had virtually nothing, and no dad. And I remember going to camp when I was 5 years old, and it was by the Catholic Charities in New York City. It wasn't paid for by the city. It wasn't paid for by the state. It was paid for by a religious organization and by volunteers. And that's the way we should handle this here. The government is responsible for safety. We are individually responsible for any comfort and convenience.
And finally, Pete Mulcahy.
I think one of the best things we can do is have the municipality get out of the way. The stakeholders know the solutions and implement the solutions. We talked about bringing all the stakeholders, the VFWs, the Lions Clubs, and those folks together, get the community out of the way. Our Rotary Club out in Eagle River just built the first fully accessible playground in the state of Alaska. Other Rotaries have been working on this for over a year and couldn't get it done. John Rada told me, quite frankly, we can do it in Julian Eagle River because we have a park service area, we can't do it in the community. So we got to peel that back and find out what are the obstacles. When I took over the Armed Services YMCA, we had one after-school program at Eielson Air Force Base. I asked my predecessor, why aren't we in Anchorage? He said, because of the C in YMCA. The ASB will not let us in because of the C. So I went to see Carol Como, and I said, we're coming into the school, and we're going to provide an after-school program. It's Operation Hero. We won't say it's ASYMCA. And we were in, and within a few months, we had 7 programs.
Okay, thank you very much. Now we'll take a couple of questions from the audience. If you could come up to the podium and please identify yourself.
We still have one more AFACT question.
Oh, you have one more? Okay.
Yes. This is the safety question. My name is Robert Evans. I'm pastor of Bethel Chapel. We've done a lot of work in the community on safety and neighborhoods and those things. My question is this. Statistically, in a community where police officers work with traditional means, crime rates go down, community involvement goes up. In Anchorage, we have a CAP team that moves from troubled area to troubled area to troubled area. And it seems like maybe they're putting a Band-Aid on a problem. And is there a way that we can move to a more traditional method that puts the officers and the neighborhoods together, reducing those crime rates? If you're elected, would you support that traditional method?
Okay, this time we're going to start with Andy Clary.
Thank you for the question. Really do appreciate that. Public safety is the #1 priority of the municipality. We cannot skimp there. It is definitely something that we need to support and support well. And I admire what the police department has done in the area of community policing. And my understanding is that it's going pretty well. We may need more staff, and if we have an academy later this year, which will happen, and it will have more police officers to help out with that. The few ride-alongs that I've been along on with the police department, what I've noticed is the substance abuse issues more than anything else. And if we, as a community, can come together to mitigate as much as we can the alcohol issue, I think we will go far in reducing crime in this town.
Big training.
Thank you. I appreciate your question, but I've got a little different answer for you. The problem is AO 37 that's been dumped on the assembly. On the 26th of March, we're going to see the police leave this town. I've sat through hundreds of people's testimony on what 37 means to the average police officer. And quite frankly, they're leaving Anchorage. I've talked to officer after officer. They will vote with their feet and find a job somewhere where their labor is not being subject to negotiations by the administration and the assembly. And that is the biggest problem facing us right now, because they're demoralized. I don't care who you talk to. Talk to the head of the, what do you call them, the bomb squad? He's going to leave here. Talk to the evidence technicians that keep that evidence, so when a court official calls for the evidence that we brought to them, they're going to leave here. So we'll make the problem you're talking about one that we need to deal with. It will pale in comparison to what will happen in this town if these officers vote with their feet and leave.
Mr. Train's right on that part. I've talked to 5 officers in the last couple of days, and they're leaving by the end of the year for many reasons, one of them being A37. But what we've been seeing on the CAF team is more problem-oriented policing, meaning they're policing the problem, which essentially is like putting a finger in the bottle of water here. The water's going to go somewhere, but it's going to go somewhere. It's going to stay within the bottle. And so what we need to do is change our approach, and that is going to take proper staffing. Right now, we're just barely over 1 per 1,000 on the population of policing. To do true community policing, it takes at least double that. That doesn't mean you need to have a police state. It just means you need to have time to work the problem so that you can help find the solutions that perhaps would end those problems in the future. So we don't have proper staffing. AO37 presents a huge obstacle. We're going backwards, not forwards, and that's shameful. The community loses. Thank you.
Nick Mo.
Thanks for your question. A couple things that stand out to me about public safety in the city. It is a huge, huge issue. You know, Alaska and Anchorage, we lead the nation in rates of domestic violence, child abuse, sexual assault, and a lot of other statistics that are related to substance abuse. And when I think of public safety, you know, I want to ask the question, you know, why, you know, what makes Anchorage unsafe? Is it a lack of opportunities? Is it because people aren't receiving the skills and training they need to be successful in their own lives? And I think a lot of the solutions could involve great partnerships between businesses that can help offer some of those services. But I also think in terms of the patrol, I think I would like to see a traditional approach as well as more of a community-based approach where relationships are built within the community with public safety enforcement. In terms of AO37, you know, the EMS is a big issue. I think we should have highly trained emergency services.
Time's up.
Not the lowest bidder.
In the last question, get to the river. I think when we think about public safety, we all I think, would agree that public safety is the foundation of government. The primal thing that government has to do. So until we have the opportunity, we have to support our police, fire, and if we can strengthen those relationships, whether it's through community patrols, whether it's through citizens action committees, whether it's through community policing, I think we need to do that because who better knows our community than the people that live there? So anytime we can integrate the police department and the community, I think it's a win-win for all of us. You know, people will get a better perspective of what the police are doing, but the police will get the opportunity to talk to people in the neighborhoods and the communities, really get a feel for what's going on in their communities.
Well, I was a California police officer about 50 years ago, and I was also on the Las Vegas Police Reserves. I wasn't making a ton of money. I think I was making about $4 an hour. I think anybody that puts their life on the line should get the highest salary that's available in the community. That means the firemen, policemen, the emergency medical services. They're the ones that put their lives on the line. They're the ones that should get the maximum amount of benefits. They're the ones that serve us the best. So I would like to see a reserve police department here. And I had mentioned that, and I was told that it costs too much money for these people with the police academy. Well, you don't have to do that. Because when I was on the reserves, they just trained us as we showed up. And we rode with the officers. You could double the size of the number of individuals that are out there right now at no cost to the city because it's a strictly
So public safety should be our government's top priority. I enlisted as a military policeman. I've been reading law enforcement technology. I understand community policing. I'm a firm supporter of community policing. I'm currently on the board of supervisors for the Chugiak Volunteer Fire Department. I understand public safety. I think beyond community policing is no more than just putting the policemen out in those local beats, as you said. It's also the community involvement. It's the neighborhood watch, the community patrols. It's the citizens academy, so that the entire community becomes more aware of public safety and gets more involved. And I think that's what will help solve the issues that you brought up. Thanks.
Cheryl Fraskin.
Thank you. I definitely agree about the importance of community policing and the value of relationships between the community and the police. And we make us a better place to live. And it also requires us as individuals to take some responsibility, some accountability for what we do, what our family does, our neighbors do. And that's a commitment that you're making to the rest of the community. So my commitment, if elected, will be to work towards fuller implementation of community policing.
Mr. Isley.
Well, I was always told that idle time is the devil's playground. And when I went to every community council meetings, I saw that Alaska has some of the best benefits in the world. If a refugee comes to America, the U.S. government will support them for 5 years. And when their family comes to Alaska and tells them about the benefits, they will give up their federal government funding in the lower U.S. and move up here because we give them more. And as long as we give that much to so many people, we're going to have a problem because they have too much idle time and money on their hands. The other thing is if you got a guy that can stand on the corner making between $20,000 and $60,000 tax-free a year, just handling, that's just going to add to the problem. And if 8037 causes our police officers to leave, maybe they're not that dedicated to the community.
Thank you, Mr. Steele.
I agree that public safety is probably number one concern. I've been walking door to door, and I hear that constantly when I ask the question. Community policing is an idea that I agree with. We started on a grant for community policing by putting officers in our schools. They were to learn the neighborhood, get in touch with people in the neighborhood, and get a feel for it. And it works. But we don't get qualified officers. We don't keep qualified officers if we don't respect them. I think the ordinance AO37 is an example, only one example, of where this administration does not respect police officers. Also, he's demonized them since he's come into office. So I believe in the appropriate expenditure.
Finally, Andy Clary and Dick Traney.
We already answered.
Okay, I think we started. Already answered this. All right. Then let's go to the. We're going to do a change up here. We're short of time, so let's have a brief question from a member of the audience. This is the gold rush to the podium. Somebody wants to ask a question. And, as far as the audience goes, I mean the panelists goes, the candidates, they get 30 seconds. And then we're going to go to 30-second answers this round. And this time we're going to start with Mr. Honeman. That's correct.
Hi, I'm Beverly Churchill. My question for you is, would you support a review of the Anchorage Municipal Code to identify which ordinances currently allow artificial persons, such as corporations, to exercise rights as if they were people? And once identified, would you clarify, or would you work to clarify that under our state constitution, artificial persons may have privileges, but do not have inalienable rights?
would support whatever we could to clarify and define what was the Citizens United Supreme Court ruling. And unfortunately, we had to follow all the laws. That's the Supreme Court law of the land under court case law. But certainly, states and municipalities should have, in my opinion, a way to review and define that or make it more clear. Yes.
Mr. Moe. 30 seconds or less.
Thank you for your question, Evelyn. I completely disagree with the Citizens United ruling that corporations are citizens. I think, the reason why I'm running is because I feel like Ernie Hall shut out people from the public process, refused to let them speak on an issue for the first time in Anchorage history, and allowing special interests and corporations unlimited opportunities to fund people running in elections drowns out the public voice. So I'm running because I want to increase participation in government, give the community back a voice, and that's why I'm passionate about this before.
Maybe not last year.
Quite frankly, I have to do a little more research before I can tell you which way I can go on it. I don't know. Sorry, I didn't have an answer.
As Mr. Holman said, it is the law of the land and it is state law, but a review of what we can do locally to ensure that it is defined what their rights are, I would support.
And I also agree with what Mr. McKay said. I couldn't agree with
You have a very good point. I think I would look into it and support it as much as it's
I learned in business law that corporations are treated under the law as people, tax law mainly. But obviously they don't have any animal rights, and we need to clarify it in statute that we, federal government, if we're going to make some changes. But we the people didn't necessarily have the corporation in mind. And corporations, the problem is corporations live forever and people don't.
As was already stated, it is the law of the land, but I would be open to reviewing it. That seems reasonable to me.
Actually, I teach college and university, and we're going to the Declaration of Independence yesterday. I was reading to my students, and I remember corporations in there. Supreme Court's ruled in error before, and they reversed themselves. They need to look at this case again and reverse it, because that's not in the Constitution. Shouldn't be something they have.
We are going to take one final question, and again, 30 seconds or less. We'll start with Mr. Moe on the far end. Please.
Thank you.
And do identify yourself.
Thank you, Michael. Georgiana Lincoln, originally Rampart, Interior Alaska, but resident of Anchorage for the last 10 years. First of all, I want to say to my minister, Michael Burke, I loved seeing all those cars out there, so I'm inviting you all back on Sunday. And second, and this is not really a question, I just want food for thought for you all to think about this. But Michael, I was a bit disappointed. I thought the school board was going to be here too, and I saw my friend Betty Davis.
I think you're going to have an opportunity to chat with them individually. As explained earlier, there was difficulty accommodating all the people who are running.
Well, I encourage you to have something for the school board because that's really such a critical issue. And I thank Senator Betty Davis for being here. We have, ladies and gentlemen, such a diversity within this city. And I don't know if some of you realize that, but I am an Alaska Native, and I serve on the Alaska Federation Native Board of Directors and First Alaskans. And just recently, by a single vote, we moved our convention, the largest convention in the state of Alaska, to Fairbanks. And that was for a good cause that it was moved to Fairbanks. And I encourage you to go on the AFN site and see when the meetings are being held so you can come and listen to that particular side of this
huge community that's here in Anchorage, but we have a growing number of ethnic backgrounds here in Anchorage, and I just don't feel that they are being heard. And I'd like to see this body here being a little bit more diversified myself. The same things that I wrote down for public safety, education, public transportation, housing is of great concern to many of the minority groups that are here within your community. And I heard a response about agencies, we're working with agencies, but somehow we've got to have the people talking to you all, or you all coming out to talk to the people. So I know you're limited on time, but my question would have been, but you can just think about it, is how would you include our extremely beautifully diversified community here in Anchorage so that you hear the people's voice and not agency's voice? So I thank you for your time, and thank you, Michael, for allowing me to...
Thank you very much. Now we'll go to the, we're going to go to closing statements. So we're limited on time.
Paperwork and run.
Okay.
And I'll assist you with your campaign.
We're limited on time here. We're going to go to 1 minute closing statements. We're going to start with Mr. Nick Moe.
Okay. Well, thank you guys for allowing me the opportunity to speak today. Thank you, AFACT, for hosting this debate. I mentioned the reason why I'm running is because I feel that Ernie Hall has lost touch with West Anchorage. I feel that if we're trying to increase participation in government, we should not shut anybody out. And if I'm somebody who is learning about city government for the first time and trying to get involved in the issues, that doesn't send a very good message to me. Ernie and I have a lot of different differences. One is leadership style. You may not agree with me on every issue, but I'll be honest, you'll know where I stand, and you'll know that you'll be certain that I'll work very hard to listen and represent the interests of West Anchorage. That's why I'm asking for your write-in vote. Nick Moe, M-O-E, West Anchorage, C-B. I'll have information in the back, some literature, and I look forward to meeting everybody at the reception. I think we have some very important issues we need to address, and we should ask more of our elected officials. Ernie Hall's not here. I'm here because I want to hear from you what you think is important.
Okay. Amy Domboski.
Thank you for having me. I'm running because I love my community. It's quite simple. I grew up in Chidiac, River. I raised my children there. I have a 16-year-old that's attending Chidiac High School and a 13-year-old that's at Mirror Lake. And I've found this, I've been involved in service since I was 15, and I'm 36 now. I believe in service. I believe in being selfless. And for me, I have some great opponents next to me to my left. We have a great community, and all three of us want the community to thrive and prosper. And we can do that if we come together, if we reach out to each other, and ask our neighbors, what is it that you're not getting? What is it that I can help you with? And not just from a government perspective, but from a neighbor's perspective. So for me, it's very important to, just like I said, reach out and talk to people, and I appreciate the time, and thank you so much for inviting me.
Well, I'm Bob Lugo. As I said, I'm 72 years old. I lived in Eagle River for 29 years. Raised my children there. They attended Eagle River Elementary and Reading and Chidiac High. And I'm retired from the U.S. Army. I also served in the U.S. Air Force and the U.S. Navy during Vietnam and the Alaska Army National Guard during Desert Storm. I'm also retired federal service. I'm chairman and president of a precious metals company out of Austin, Texas. I hold degrees in electronics, philosophy, and anthropology. I am been a volunteer chaplain for veterans for the past 14 years. I do a lot of services out of Fort Rich, where I will ultimately be, and in a good company. I'm the emergency coordinator for Eagle River, been in ham radio for 56 years, and I guess I'm out of time.
People,
thank you so much for putting this event on tonight. Thank all you folks for coming out today. This has been a very informative session, so thanks again for coming out. I want to run because my whole life has been about service. 28 years in the military, 10 years in leadership positions in the private sector, and 13 years of immersing myself in the volunteer community in Juliet, Eagle River. When we get outside, you pick up the cards and you'll see the resume. So all that time has been preparing me, providing me a breadth of experience in working in nonprofit, private sector, government. I've come up with creative solutions, and I'm ready to serve you on this Sunday. So thanks again for coming out. I appreciate this opportunity.
Thank you. My name is Cheryl Frasca, and I'm running for West Anchorage Assembly seat. I moved to Alaska in 1977, and since then I've had opportunities to serve in various positions working for primarily executives at the state and local level. Since 2000, I've served twice as the budget director for the municipality, and as a result, I have a lot of knowledge about how the city works. I think in recognition of that, the Assembly did appoint me to the vacant seat in mid-January to serve out Harriet Drummond's Assembly term, at least until this election. I got to be candid, one of the frustrating things to me about the Assembly process is the role of the public. I think it's real limiting to think that they're only entitled to 3 minutes when an issue comes before the Assembly. And so my commitment is to rethink how the Assembly does this process and what way can the citizens be engaged, especially on difficult policy issues where their comments serve as input into the decision making.
Mr. Isley.
As you can tell, I'm not a professional politician. I noticed that our city is polarized, our state is polarized, our country is polarized. We have a strong left, strong right, and I'm not affiliated with anybody. And I believe that we should have more diversity in our country, and that's why I'm sitting here. And if anybody at any time wants to run for any particular office, I'll give them all the support I can, and I'll help them. And I've stated that at community councils, and I'll state it here again. If you're really concerned, stand up and sit on this side of the table, and I'll do everything I can to help you. Whether you believe in the same things I do or not, you have that right to come and run, and I'll support you as best I can.
Tim Steele.
I'll take this extra time. I am Tim Steele. I'm running for the open West Anchorage seat on the Assembly. And I think everybody up here is into public service. They wouldn't be doing it because it's not for the money. It's not necessarily for the glory either. We hear a lot about money and availability and prioritizing and so on and so forth. But the government was established by us, the people, to do our business, to do those things that we want it to do. It's not just a policeman, it's not just to respond to fires, but it's all the public service personnel. We need to have a little more empathy, a little more respect, a little more listening. We work for the people, and we've got to keep that in mind. My background is broad, diverse. You can look online, timsteeleforassembly.com to find out more.
Well, thank you for this forum. Again, my name is Andy Clary, running for the Midtown seat. And I just have to give a good shout out to my wife, Stephanie Clary. She has been a tremendous supporter throughout this entire campaign, and she's here tonight. I just wanted to honor her. One of the things we didn't really get to talk about tonight was kind of our passions for community service. And for me in particular, I'm really out there looking for ways that faith organizations like those that you represent here can partner with the municipality. One great way that that's happened in recent years is the opening of the cold weather shelters that are now available within churches in this town. And there are many going on, there's one in our church. These are the ways that the community can step up and reach out and work with the municipality to provide for a lot of the things that we talked about here today at this forum. Again, my name is Andy Clary, running for the Midtown seat. Thank you.
appreciate you being here today. My name is Dick Train, running for election to the Assembly from Midtown. I'm your neighbor. I live, if I could walk that way, about a quarter of a mile from here. Sonny will let me walk in this ice and snow that way, but I can get there. Anyway, Senator Lincoln, you're right about the Native community. It needs to be more recognized than it is. 6 of my grandchildren are half Native, so I'm very concerned about how Native Alaskans, indigenous people are treated in this town. I had one assembly member from part of Anchorage one time that said, don't worry about them, all they want to do is get drunk and cause problems. That's when they had to take them out of the assembly chamber, so about to terminate them. My concern is all of our children, no matter who they are. And that's what I'm trying to do on this Assembly. I'm not a rubber stamp for any mayor. Take a look at the 14 years I've been on the Assembly. I've argued with every mayor when they're wrong. I agree with them when they're right. And right now, we have an administration out of touch with the people in the city. We have an Assembly out of touch with the people in this city. When you shut down testimony of 210 people that want to testify, you're not doing the city's business. So I need re-elected. Appreciate your vote on the 2nd of April.
Paul, I'll pick up what he was. I actually agree with quite a few of the comments made on, so I want to thank each and every one of you taking your time and being here. And I love the AFACT forums. Are very informational for me and good questions, by the way. Nearly 40-year resident, father of 2, best job in the world. I'm talking about 2 young boys. And one of them, his dad's in the Air Force, so he's out of state currently. But anyway, I invested their power in me to be the representative of East Anchorage 2 years ago. I've learned a lot. Certainly, I hope I've contributed a lot. I'm willing and ready to step up and continue serving. I need your help. And don't be afraid to learn as much as you can about each of the candidates. And when we're not getting it right, replace us, find someone else that can, and we'll listen to you. And I'm a nonpartisan, probably one of the few on the body. And I agree with what Mr. Tran said. When the mayor's been right, I've been there. When he's been wrong, and he's been wrong a lot, I'm not moving. So, you're very silence. Fall home tonight.
Before we break up and go on to the reception, I saw several school board candidates and members here. If they're in the hall right here, if you could stand up and identify yourself so that people can talk to you when we move on. Hi, there's Betty Davis. I saw school board member Smith somewhere. I'm sure he's around here. At this point, I'd like to very much, hi, please.
Hi, I'm Stephanie from George. I'm running for CP.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much. Is there anybody else? Okay, I would like to, first of all, thank our timekeeper. You found out here that the timekeeper is a lot more important than the moderator. And I would like to very much thank the candidates. I know they have many, many things to do, and now would be your opportunity to take questions or chat with members of the audience. Thank you all for coming. Good evening.
Folks, we're going to ask that